Billy Jenkins thought he knew every sound his ranch made. For 40 years he walked the same gravel path toward his barn each morning, listening to the wind move across the Missouri hills. But on that cool September sunrise, something felt wrong. The air felt too still. The gravel under his boots sounded too sharp. And as he reached the barn door, his heart began to pound in a way he had not felt since he was a young cowboy. He froze with his hand on the latch. From inside came the slow, heavy scrape of hooves against concrete. A horse was moving around in there. But that made no sense. He had turned out all 4 of his horses the night before. He knew where each one was. None should have been inside the barn. Billy pushed the door open with caution. The dim light drifted in through the high windows, showing dust drifting slowly through the air. At the very end of the barn, in an empty stall where no horse should have been, stood a thin bay mare he had never seen before. She was rail thin. Her coat looked dull and rough. Her head hung low, and her ribs showed sharp under her skin. She stood without energy, as if life itself had been draining out of her for a long time. Billy stared in shock. Someone had brought her here. Someone had put her in this stall in the middle of the night. But what made his breath catch in his throat was not the horse. It was the piece of paper taped to the stall door. The corner fluttered in the morning breeze, the handwriting large and shaky. Billy stepped closer, his hands trembling as he reached for it. He read the first line, and tears filled his eyes before he could stop them. "Dear Mr. Jenkins, her name is Ruby. She's 12 years old." Billy read every word twice. Then 3 times. The note told a story he could feel in his bones. Ruby was scared of storms. She loved carrots. She would nudge your pocket for treats. She had once saved a young girl's life. And now she had been left here by a dying woman who had run out of options. The note explained everything. Liver cancer, no family left to help, no money. A woman who had watched Billy from the road for weeks, choosing him because she saw the way he cared for his horses. She had used the last of her strength to bring Ruby to safety. She apologized for trespassing. She apologized for everything. And then, she begged Billy not to send Ruby to auction. At the end of the note, the woman wrote that she was probably already gone. Billy sat down on an old bucket because his legs could not hold him anymore. He stared at Ruby, at her dull coat and thin frame, and felt something crack open inside him. She did not look at him with fear. She looked at him with exhaustion. She stood still, waiting, as if the world had taught her to expect nothing good anymore. Slowly, Billy stood and stepped into her stall. Ruby did not move away. She did not flinch. She simply leaned forward, gently pressing her muzzle against his chest. That small touch broke him. His eyes filled again, and his voice shook when he whispered, "You're safe now, girl. I promise. You're safe." He checked her carefully. Her coat was patchy. Old scars marked her sides. Her hooves were cracked and overgrown. She was thin, so thin he could feel every bone along her back. She needed help fast. But when she looked at him with soft eyes and nudged his shirt pocket, just like the note said, something warm spread through his chest. Billy got to work. He gave her a small portion of hay so she would not get sick from overeating. He filled her water, pulling the bucket away when she drank too fast. He found the envelope under the feed bin. Inside was $200 in old bills, all the woman had left. By sunrise, Billy was on the phone with Dr. Ellen Carter, the local vet. He told her everything. She did not ask questions. She only said she would be there in an hour. When Ellen arrived, she let out a quiet, sad breath when she saw Ruby. She began her exam, checking every inch of the mare with practiced hands. Ruby stood without protest. When the exam was finally over, Ellen looked at Billy with a serious face. "She's very weak," she said. "She's been underfed for months. She has injuries, worms, ulcers, and those hooves need a farrier as soon as possible. It's going to take a lot of time and money to get her healthy again." Billy did not hesitate. "What does she need?" Ellen gave a small smile, a tired, hopeful smile. "I was counting on you saying that." For the next 7 days, Billy and his wife Betty dedicated their lives to Ruby. He woke every 4 hours to feed her in small amounts. Betty helped with night shifts when he grew too tired. Ruby began to drink normally. She started gaining a little weight. And one morning, when Billy reached for his phone, Ruby nudged his pocket looking for treats. Just like the note had said she would. It made him smile. It made him cry. It made him realize he had made the right choice. Because Ruby was not just a horse someone left behind. Ruby was a promise. A final act of love from a dying woman who trusted a stranger to do the right thing. And Billy intended to honor that trust with everything he had. He just didn't know yet that Ruby was about to change far more lives than his own. By the second week, Ruby's body began to change in small but steady ways. Her coat was still rough, but her eyes looked brighter. She walked with a little more strength. She even started greeting Billy with a soft nicker each morning, asking for her small breakfast of soaked hay pellets. She had gained only a few pounds, but the weight wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the spark coming back into her spirit. On the 8th day, everything shifted. Billy's neighbor, James Coleman, stopped by to borrow a wrench. He found Billy brushing Ruby's coat and stopped cold when he saw her. His face tightened with anger and sadness. "Who did this to her?" James asked quietly. Billy told him the entire story. He explained the note, the dying woman, the $200 in the envelope. James listened without interrupting once. When Billy finished, James let out a slow breath. "This isn't the first time," he said. Then he told Billy something that surprised him. Years ago, James found 2 starved horses tied to his gate. No note, no explanation. Just 2 living creatures someone didn't know what to do with. Then Billy remembered other stories. A dumped pony at the city park. A lame horse left by the highway. Horses abandoned when owners died or lost their land. Everyone in their county had a story like this. Something was wrong. Something big. A week later, Billy attended a small meeting at the Dallas County Community Center. Many neighbors came. Ranchers, trainers, farriers, vets, families. Billy shared Ruby's story. James shared his. Others stood and told theirs too. More and more voices rose with the same pain and the same fear. Horses were being abandoned because people had nowhere to turn. When the room grew quiet, Billy's wife, Betty, spoke up. "People aren't cruel," she said. "Most of them are just desperate. They think they don't have help." Virginia Price, a retired horse trainer, pushed herself to her feet. "We're fixing that. Starting today," she said, "we're creating a safety net, a community that steps in before a horse gets dropped off in the dark." The entire room leaned forward. "We help each other," Virginia said. "One person gives hay, another helps with vet bills, someone else offers a stall for a few nights, someone donates time, someone donates feed. We don't wait until it's too late. We step in before a horse ends up like Ruby." Billy felt something swell in his chest. Hope, real hope. Then came the question that changed everything. "What do we call this?" Quote. James answered without hesitation. "The Dallas County Horse Safety Net." Every hand in the room went up in agreement. The network grew fast, faster than anyone expected. Within weeks, they helped an elderly man who couldn't afford winter hay. They helped a single mother with vet bills for her daughter's pony. They helped a young couple who had lost their home in a foreclosure and were trying to secretly care for their horse in borrowed pasture. The network found safe boarding and support for them until they got back on their feet. And Billy? He kept working on Ruby day after day. By week 6, she had gained 60 pounds. Her eyes were bright. She had enough strength to trot across her paddock, stiff but proud. Billy cheered like she had just won a race. Ruby tossed her head like she agreed. Her hooves began to heal under the farrier's careful trims. Her ulcers improved. Her coat began to shine. and her personality bloomed like a flower in spring. Turns out, Ruby was nosy, very nosy. She wanted to see everything happening on the ranch. She hung her head over the stall door and watched Billy work, talking to him in soft knickers. When Betty walked in with a pocket full of treats, Ruby pranced in her stall, demanding attention. If anyone dared to give another horse a carrot before her, Ruby squealed like the whole world had wronged her. Billy laughed more in those weeks than he had in years. Then came the call that changed everything again. It was mid-December. Virginia called, her voice tight. "Billy, I found her," she said. "Who?" "The woman who left Ruby." Billy felt his breath stop. Virginia's daughter worked at a hospice and found the files. The woman's name was Dorothy Ann Sawyer. She died 2 days after leaving Ruby. She lived only a mile from Billy's ranch. She had refused to enter hospice until she took care of something. Everyone thought she meant paperwork, but now they knew she meant Ruby. Billy had to sit down. He felt the truth hit him like a wave. "She hooked up a trailer by herself," he whispered. "Sick, weak, dying. She loaded Ruby and drove her to me, alone, in the dark." But there was more. Her property was going up for auction. The county wanted unpaid taxes. And for the first time since reading that note, Billy felt a deep calling inside him. "What's the price?" he asked. When Virginia told him, he made a decision without thinking twice. "I'm buying it," he said. "What will you do with it?" Quote, "Turn it into a recovery place for horses like Ruby. A place for horses who need time, care, and love. I'll call it Dorothy's Place." There was a long silence. Then Virginia whispered, "That's beautiful, Billy." He didn't know yet how many people would join him. He didn't know the miracle waiting just around the corner. And he didn't know that soon Dorothy's Place would save more lives than he ever imagined. But he did know one thing. Dorothy's last act of love was about to change everything for their entire community. The news about Billy's plan spread faster than he expected. Before he could even figure out how to raise the money, the community stepped forward like they had been waiting for something to unite around. James Coleman organized a fundraiser at the VFW Hall, and the turnout stunned everyone. People brought quilts, handmade furniture, baskets of canned goods, and even a processed side of beef for the auction. Some donated money quietly in envelopes. Others gave a few dollars they could barely spare. But every person came with one goal: help Billy buy Dorothy Sawyer's property. They raised $8,000 in a single night. The feed store donated fencing materials. A local construction crew offered free labor to repair the barn. The bank worked with Billy to create a loan he could manage on his fixed income. For the first time in months, Billy felt like the world was working with him, not against him. Then, 3 days before the auction, Billy received a phone call that stopped him in his tracks. "Mr. Jenkins, my name is Gregory Palmer. I represent Miss Samantha Sawyer Blake." Billy gripped the phone. "Dorothy's daughter?" "Yes. Ms. Blake recently learned about what happened to Ruby and about your efforts to purchase the property. She wishes to help." Billy's throat tightened. "Help how?" "She is wiring $50,000 for the purchase and for development of the recovery facility. She said she failed her mother in life. She doesn't want to fail her memory now." Billy closed his eyes as tears filled them again. "That's the most generous thing I've ever heard." "There is one request," the lawyer added. "She wants the facility to be named Dorothy's Place. And she would like a plaque telling Ruby's story, so others know it is okay to ask for help." Quote, "It will be done," Billy said without hesitation. With Samantha's support, the auction became a formality. Billy bought Dorothy's little ranch, and the transformation began at once. Volunteers cleaned the barn, repaired the roof, rebuilt the paddocks, and painted the fences fresh white. By January, Dorothy's Place opened its gates. They mounted a bronze plaque at the entrance that read, "Dorothy's Place, a safe haven for horses in need." In memory of Dorothy Ann Sawyer, who loved her horse Ruby so deeply that she found the strength in her final days to ensure Ruby would be safe. If you or someone you know is struggling to care for a horse, please reach out. there is no shame in asking for help. Below that was the number for the Dallas County Horse Safety Net, which had now grown into 5 surrounding counties. Ruby was the first official resident, even though she still slept in Billy's own barn. She had earned that right. She was his family now. But Dorothy's place soon filled with horses who needed time and care. A thin gelding from a hoarding case. A frightened thoroughbred left behind when his owner died. A pony rescued after a house fire. Each horse arrived broken in some way, and each one left stronger than when they came. And every time Billy walked the property, he felt Dorothy's presence in the soft wind and warm sunlight. Her love still lived in every stall. 7 months after Ruby first appeared in Billy's barn, a rental car rolled down the long gravel driveway toward Dorothy's place. Billy was checking on a new mare when he heard footsteps outside. He turned and saw a woman with tired eyes and a familiar look. "Samantha," he said softly. She nodded, emotion filling her face as she looked around the clean barn and the peaceful horses. "I had to see it," she whispered. "I had to see what my mother's last wish created." Billy walked beside her in silence until she asked quietly, "May I meet Ruby?" The walk to Billy's ranch felt long and heavy with emotion. When they reached the barn, Ruby was dozing in her stall, her coat now full and shining. Billy called her name softly. Ruby lifted her head, ears forward. She stepped toward the stall door, curious. When Samantha came close, Ruby stretched her neck and sniffed her hand. Then, as if recognizing something deep inside her memory, Ruby pressed her forehead gently against Samantha's palm. Samantha broke. Tears ran down her face. "She remembers me," she whispered. "After everything, she remembers." They spent 2 hours together. Samantha brushed Ruby's coat, walked her in the paddock, and fed her carrots, just like she had when she was a girl. Before leaving, she wrote another check, another $50,000 for Dorothy's place. "Keep saving horses," she told Billy. "Everyone you help is a way of honoring my mother." She gave everything she had for Ruby. You gave everything you had to continue that love. Billy nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest he couldn't put into words. Over the next year, Dorothy's place helped more than 40 horses. The safety net helped over 100 families. People were learning something important. Asking for help wasn't failure. It was courage. Billy still woke at dawn each morning and walked to his barn. Ruby always greeted him with a nudge to his pocket, demanding her carrot. She was healthy now, strong, loved. But on some mornings, as the first light washed over the Missouri hills, Billy would pause and whisper a promise. "She's safe, Dorothy. Your girl is safe. And because of you, so many others are safe too." Then Ruby would nicker, impatient for breakfast, and Billy would laugh through his tears. Because in the end, one desperate act of love had changed an entire community. One horse had brought people together. One woman's courage had sparked something beautiful. Love found a way. It always did.